So, guys, tell me this. Um, have you ever found yourself wondering why your dog listens to one person but not another? Maybe it's they listen to your spouse but not you, or maybe they listen to you but not your kids. Maybe even it's the dog listens great for the trainer in class, but just won't perform when you come home. This is something that I see come up all the time. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. For anybody who is new here, I'm Jennifer Malloway. I'm a dog trainer and behavior consultant, and I make it my job to help you have the most magical relationship possible with your dog. And yeah, today we're going to talk about why that happens and how to fix it. So actually, to be honest, I wanted to talk about this today because I'm seeing this happen all the time in my own household. And yeah, nobody tell David that we're talking about him. But yeah, so what happens here is that Dizzy's a jumper. He jumps up on people a lot. He jumps up, puts his front paws on our laps when we're sitting on the couch, or just paws on the couch. And we have made a rule that no dogs on the couch. That's totally your preference. Dogs are okay on the couch. It just happens to be our house rule. So he'll put his paws up, and we ask him. Off is the cue to remove the paws from either the couch or our legs or wherever they happen to be, the counter. And so what happens is Dizzy will jump up, and if I ask him to get off, he'll get off the first time. But when David asks him, he has to repeat the cue multiple times, or I jump in and save the the whole situation. And David knows why. He's had plenty of dogs. He knows how to get behaviors to happen. And also, I know he knows why because I've explained it on multiple occasions. And it's because with me, Dizzy has a strong reinforcement history for that behavior. And what I mean by reinforcement history is just that he has many repetitions in the past of that behavior occurring and then him being rewarded for it. So with me and Dizzy, like that, I spent a lot of time and a lot of repetitions rewarding that behavior when I give that cue. But with David, that history is not there. It's not very strong. Jackie says, my stepson can't get my dogs to listen to him. He talks real low. So you bring up an interesting point. We'll come back around to that. Because it's not, you'll see. Each time that I suggest, when this happens, I'll suggest to David, if David says off and then Dizzy actually gets off, I'm like, reward him, go get him a treat. And David kind of shakes his head skeptically. It's as if, he's like, he knows the answer. He knows what he should do. But there's some like mental barrier to actually doing what needs to be done. I mean, he'll do it. David will, if I point it out, he'll go get a treat. But it seems to me, and this is my impression, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that it's like he doesn't really believe that this will work, or he just doesn't trust in the process, or something. There's in all fairness, like it's not very intuitive, and there are other things that are present in our culture. Jackie says it's a male thing, but I don't think it's just a male thing. I think it's a cultural thing, that we think that dogs should just do what we ask. They should want to make us happy. They, that's their purpose in life, is to just please their humans. And even when that's the case, like maybe you've even paid a trainer to tell you that's not the case, it's like it's stuck in there. It's just this part of our culture. It's like we have there's these moral principles. We think like it's the moral imperative. The dog should just do it because we asked them to, or or fairness or something. It's hard to put my finger on exactly, but yeah, it's just like we really think that that dogs should just listen, even when we know that we have to reward the behaviors that we want to see more often. Um, but for some reason, these mental, like these human constructs that we have in our minds, they just get in the way. Oh, hey, Suzanne, nice to see you here. Thank you. She says, great topic. um, yeah, I mean, it comes up again and again. So yeah, thought it would be good to talk about. It's just so common, like most of us these days, we know that we got to reward the dog for behaviors that we want to see happen. But yeah, when that moment comes in real life, something just gets in the way. A lot of the time, something gets in the way. So yeah, what are those things that get in the way, and how do we make it so that our cues have some power? First of all, Jesse says it's a David thing. Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe it's a David thing. Maybe it's a male thing. It does seem. This is speculation. I want to say that I see this more often with men, but I've had plenty of male clients who are like totally on board. They're like, I'm going to reward the heck out of my dog, and it's no problem. But people say that a lot. So maybe I don't know. Tell me, do you guys see this more often? Do you see that the dogs will listen to females more often than men? Or do you see any other trend? Other than it's a David or a male thing? I don't know. Like yeah, share your experience here. Because yeah, it's maybe there's a pattern there, but I think it's more just whoever happens to have these ideas like that are just stuck, that like I shouldn't have to reward the dog. Like whatever's causing that to come up, like that's what's really getting in the way. But I have heard that about like tone of voice. Yeah, it's about the tone of voice. Suzanne has said this now. Two people, Jackie and Suzanne, have both said it's like has something to do with maybe volume or tone of voice, or and the female thing that could be coming from that same idea that it's like it's how you say it, right? Welcome, Karen. Hello to Virginia. Yeah, but I see a lot of emphasis put on how we say it, how we say the cue. Like that's really what's causing the behavior. So this is a perfect place to start. Let's get one thing clear. Your cue, your word, how you say it, like is not what makes the behavior happen. What comes before the behavior doesn't make the behavior happen. I know that doesn't make any sense, but it will. We'll get there. Just stay with me. Your words or whatever you've taught the dog, like sit does not make the sit happen. We are, and this is a cultural thing too. I at least was raised in an environment, not just my family, but it's family, it's school, it's every adult that we interact with growing up, and we learn this, and we become adults who think that like if you want someone to do something, you issue commands or orders or demands, or it's like we tell people what to do, and it makes the thing happen. Of course, we know that that's not actually true, because how often does that really work, right? But that's what we're told what to do, and so it's just gets passed down, and like this is the mindset that you want something to happen, you tell person, dog, kids, whatever, you tell them to do it. But it's not, when you ask them to sit, it's not the asking that makes the sit happen. So if it's not the cue, what is it? Any guesses? I'll wait a minute. I want to hear if if it's not us telling or even asking, if it's not what we say or what we do that makes that behavior happen, what's behind it? Anybody? um, I will tell you. I want at least one guess. Come on, guys. um, and Suzanne, no cheating. don't give it away. Do 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 do. The tone, AC. You're funny. No, so if it's not the cue, what makes behavior happen? It's consequences. The consequences of the behavior make that behavior happen. It's, of course, it's not quite that simple. You know, there's things like genetics that play a part in why behaviors happen, but we don't have control over genetics. We can have control over the consequences. Suzanne. Yeah. So yeah, we have control over consequences, and as trainers know this, and so this is what trainers do. We generate consequences for the behaviors that we want to see happen more often in the future. We deliver consequences, and we do this because we know that giving a treat for a sit isn't about the sit that just happened. That treat is about the next sit and the one after that. We know that if we reward this sit in this moment, we're influencing future behavior. And that's what training really is. Training is about influencing the probability of behavior happening in the future. We're playing a future game. It's a long game. And so, yeah, it comes down to, I'm going to reward you for coming when called, even though it took you 5 minutes and you drove me crazy and I'm upset, and I'm going to reward you because you did come to me finally, because I want the next time I call you for it to happen faster. We reward behavior that we want to see happen more of in the future. And this, another example is if you're watching the Olympics, say, and you see runners take off in a 100-meter race. It can look like, it's the gun going off that makes those runners start the race, makes them start running. When in reality, what makes those runners run fast is thousands of hours of practice and muscle strength and conditioning. That's what makes the runners run fast. The gun just tells them when to run. And that's what our cues are. We train the behavior through the consequences that we are giving the animal for sit or whatever you're training. And our cue we add in that just tells them when. If you sit now, you're likely to get a reward. So when we say sit and the dog sits, it looks like us saying sit is what caused it. But the likelihood of whether, if you say sit to a dog, like any random dog, say you walk up to a dog and say sit, whether they sit or not is going to depend mostly on whether or not they've been rewarded for sitting in the past, not the word that you're saying. Are you still with me? So, and in fact, I have been using the word cue. That's the word that I use to describe the hand signals or the words that I attach to the behaviors I want my dog to know. And that word, cue, actually comes from, or it's believed to come from, theater. I think I want to say like 1700s or something. The letter Q, as an abbreviation for the Latin word quando, was used for actors to know when they needed to start the next line. It turned into Q that tells them when, right? So yeah, it's just a piece of information that tells the dog when a reward is likely to happen, when that behavior might pay off. Jackie says, I ask my one dog to sit, but she bows instead. And that's related. Absolutely. You know, if we really want them to understand what our words mean, then we got to get real specific. We have to make sure that, like, when we say sit and they sit, they get rewarded. When I say sit and they bow, nothing happens, maybe. But if I say bow and they bow, then they get rewarded, right? Yeah, that comes down to, like, maybe you've taught bow more recently. So your dog is playing a betting game. You know, they're like, bowing has been paying off quite a bit. Maybe I'll do that one. Yeah, dogs tend to do the behavior that's been rewarded most frequently or most recently. So I'd be willing to bet that bow has paid off quite a bit in the past, or you've worked on that more recently than sit. Yeah, so yeah, so your cue isn't really where your power lies. Your power lies in the consequences that you're providing for the behaviors that your dog offers. And not just any consequences, right? Because that word, I think, can have kind of a negative connotation, right? You know, like, if you don't do this, there will be consequences. You know, like, a lot of times when people hear, I mean, out of context perhaps, if you hear the word consequences, a lot of times we kind of use that interchangeably with the word punishment. But rewards, your power lies in your ability to skillfully issue rewards for behavior that you want to see more often, and then connecting that behavior and reward package with your cue. So that's really where the power lies. So let's talk more about those consequences, how that works. When you do that, when you reward a dog for a behavior that you want to see more of in the future, you are making a deposit into a behavioral piggy bank. Let's make it a jar. It's a jar. It's like a swear jar, only it's like a certain behavior jar. This is a sit jar or a recall jar, or in Dizzy's case right now, it's the off jar. And hold on, Karen says, if I hold up a treat for Candy after she went out to potty, she will spin around in circles for me and I don't have to ask her to do it. Well, yeah, if you're holding up a treat, she's probably excited, for one. A lot of dogs just spin when they're excited, which is adorable. I love spinning dogs. Or did you teach that? Did you ever teach Candy to spin ever? Or is that just something that she made up? A lot of dogs will just do that because they do. It's really, really common in bull terriers. It's like a genetic behavior. Bull terriers and spinning. Google it. It's hilarious. But Candy's not a bull terrier. Remind me what Candy is. And of course, if you want to show off a video of Candy or any of your other dogs, everybody, did I not? I'm not sure if I put that link in the description, but I will add that link so that you guys can send me videos of your dogs. I really would love to show them off in the countdown if you want to share. I just think that'd be really cool. Don't forget, I won't forget to put that link down there. It's in my other videos too. If you look them up, you can find the link there. But yeah, so we've got a jar. We've got an off jar for Dizzy. And each time she's a Jack Russell, that's right. Sorry. She just started to do it for you. Jack Russell. Yeah. Awesome. I would love to see a video of that. So we have an off jar. Every time Dizzy gets off the couch when we ask, every time it gets rewarded, that's a deposit in our jar. And there can be bigger deposits and lesser deposits, you know. If he just got a pat on the head when he got off, that's a pretty small deposit. If I got off the couch and got on the floor and played around and cuddled with him for like, that's a bigger deposit. If I got off the couch and like went to get him a Kong or some food or something, that's probably even bigger deposit. So there's a magnitude there, and even unintentional rewards can be deposits. This is good to think about, because if you're like, if your dog barks at you because they want your attention, and you would not prefer that the barking continue as their way to get your attention, but when they bark, you like look at them and yell at them, which is talking to them, which is offering them some attention. You are rewarding that behavior of barking. So you're unintentionally rewarding, but you're unintentionally putting a deposit in the barking at my person for attention jar. um, and then of course on the flip side, if that behavior gets punished or just doesn't get rewarded, that might be a withdrawal from that jar. And so like, and this can be an unintentional too, like if you call your dog, Fido, come, and they come running, and you're like, okay, let's put your leash on, it's time to go home from the dog park. That's a withdrawal from your coming when called jar, because what if Fido didn't want to go home? Then they're like, that's a bummer. Like, next time I'm going to think twice about coming when they call me, because I'd like to stay. Say our friend Say has mentioned that her beagles don't like to come in from the yard. So if coming when called gets them shut in the house when they'd rather be outside, that behavior is getting punished. So that's a withdrawal from that jar. And each behavior will have its own jar, right? So we've got our sit jar, we've got our recall jar, we've got our off the counter, off the couch jar. Anything you want your dog to do, or maybe anything you don't want them to do, it has its own jar. You've got a whole apothecary. Is that the right word? You've got shelves of jars lining the room of your dog's mind, and we got to be aware of how we're providing or not providing consequences for behaviors, at least the behaviors that we care about. And dogs are very skilled at telling the difference between things. So they might have okay, I've got a sit jar for mom and a sit jar for dad. And when I sit for mom pays out, but dad never gives a treat. That might be a scenario where these people end up thinking like, okay, this dog knows sit. We've taught him sit. We've seen him sit when we say sit. But now he only listens when mom asks him, but never when dad does. Like, so he must, it must be a tone of voice thing. It must be because mom has a higher pitched, maybe sweeter tone, but dad says it differently. So that might be why the dog's not listening. Or it might be that dogs listen better to females, or we come up with these theories, when probably it's just that mom's sit jar with Fido is full and dad's is empty, or much less full, we'll say, because sometimes they do get rewarded, but it might be like in our house, Jennifer pays when I remove my paws from the couch, but not when David does. We are all slot machines, and our dogs know which of us to play. They know which machines pay out. So even though Dizzy knows off, he knows what that cue means. He knows when it's going to pay off. He knows that if I ask him, something good's going to happen. But if David asks him, maybe not. So David's rewards for getting off the couch jar is probably pretty empty. And here's the other thing, is that I don't always reward Dizzy when he takes his paws off when I ask either. But I'm very highly aware that every time I ask and he does it and I don't reward it, that's a little withdrawal from my jar. Um, and so I just kind of, it's in the back of my mind, but I kind of have an idea of how full is that jar? You know, can I afford a withdrawal? Because again, I want to make sure that next time I ask, he's still going to do it. So if I take too many withdrawals and my jar's empty, it becomes less and less likely that the next time I ask, Dizzy's going to take his paws off when I ask. Um, so just kind of have to be aware of that. It doesn't mean that I always have to have food handy, because food doesn't always have to be the reward. Of course, we've talked about this. Plenty of other things can be rewarding for dogs. You know, in actually in this case, when he jumps on the couch, what he really wants is just our attention, our affection, maybe petting, maybe just for us to look at him. Now there's always the petting and the looking at him when we ask him to get off. Like that's always part of it, but maybe sometimes it's not enough. But yeah, if I'm not gonna reward it heavily, I know that I can afford that withdrawal because I've put tons of deposits into that jar. But with David and Dizzy, he just doesn't have that history. So even though David knows, he's seen Dizzy do this for me pretty much every day. Like, why would it take David, 4 or 5 times of asking for Dizzy to listen? When for me it's the first time. It's not because of his tone. It's not because he's a dude. It's because he doesn't have that history there. So when I ask him, I'm like, just reward him. I've actually offered for David and Dizzy and I to like set aside some time. Let's just do this a bunch of times so that you put in a ton of deposits into that piggy bank so that you can afford it when you don't reward it, when you're trying to focus on work and you just need Dizzy to leave you alone. We need to get a bunch of deposits in that jar, and he didn't take me up on it. He said he would, but it just never happened. But I've offered. So yeah, it's all about that history. It's about how many times has that behavior been rewarded by you, and yeah, how full is that jar? Another way to approach this problem, at least, David would like Dizzy to get off when he asks, but he'd probably prefer if Dizzy just never put his paws on the couch or put his paws on the counter or put his paws on his legs at all in the first place, right? That would actually be preferable. And if you looked at a video, if we just took a video of our daily life, what happens? Dizzy has to, before he puts his paws on any of those things, he first has to walk up to that thing with his paws on the floor, right? Like approaching with paws on the ground always comes before jumping and putting paws up, right? So we could have a approaching with paws on the floor jar. And how often does that behavior get rewarded? Probably less often because we have our attention elsewhere. Now, this is something I've worked on with Dizzy too. So there's some money in that jar, but certainly not as much as like actual cues that I've trained. But so what I try and do is just notice. We just have to notice, when does he walk up and catch him before the jumping begins. He walks up and then the jumping starts. We have to catch him here. Great, hi Dizzy, welcome. Let me pet you while you're on the floor, or give him whatever he needs. We can guess what he wants in any given moment. Sometimes maybe he's like, hey, I'm hungry. Hey lady, my water bowl's empty. But if I attend to him before he reaches the point where he's going to jump up, then we cut the jumping at the pass. We don't have to worry about that behavior because now we're worrying about approaching with paws on the floor, that jar, separate jar. And it might be, it might be that just attention and petting, that's the deposits. It might be that getting up and playing with him is the deposits because he needs some exercise or some playtime, who knows. But We just have to make sure that we are putting deposits in a different jar, that, you know, he can't be jumping up and be having 4 paws on the floor, right? So if I just notice and reward this jar instead, and that jar gets neglected, eventually we're not going to have to worry about it at all, because he's like, I get what I need here, right? I'm playing a different slot machine. And yeah, but the sad fact is that for both me and David, like, that jar is pretty close to empty, which is why we are getting a lot of the jumping. You know, he's like, that behavior doesn't pay off. They don't notice me when I just walk up, so I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna get their attention by jumping. That works. I mean, you guys, actually, you've seen this live on my streams all the time. You know, when I have Dizzy's box and he sits here, and if I pay him no attention, he's like, well, how can I let this lady know that I'm sitting perfectly on my box? Sometimes whining might work, but I'd rather him not whine either. But if he's close enough to me, yeah, he'll start pawing at my arm. You see this all the time. The sitting on the box jar didn't work, so let's try the pawing jar. And if the pawing jar doesn't work, we'll try something else. We will try whining, or he'll, yeah, you see him all the time. He does now. This one I really like, when he just goes back there and he'll just do his sit pretty, because that is, Jackie, like you said, that's a behavior. No, Karen, I'm sorry, yours, Candy, who's spinning. That's a behavior that's been rewarded frequently or recently. For Dizzy, it's the sitting pretty. So if he's like, I need attention right now, or food, and what's gonna work? What's the most likely thing that's gonna work? Sitting pretty works pretty often, except when I'm talking to you guys, because I got my attention up here. But he's actually, oh man, he's passed out. We had a nice dog park adventure yesterday, so he got some play, and he's still tired. It's a full 24 hours later, and he's like still wiped. So yeah, just go get your dog some exercise, and then you won't have to worry about it at all. Yeah, so if your dog knows a behavior, but only listens to some people and not others, I would start by asking yourself, you know, how full is that jar? Tell me, is this resonating with anybody? Is if you see this happen, do you think, could that be the likely culprit? I think, Jesse, if you're still here, you mentioned that this happens with one of your dogs at home. Could that be part of the problem? It's not always. To be fair, it's not always the complete solution. Not at all. But I see it happen often enough that I thought it would be worth talking about. And maybe David will see this and he'll actually take me up on that offer to do a little practicing. Put some deposits in that jar of his. If not, oh well. Yeah, tell me. The other thing that I think is maybe, it's a shift in topics a little bit, but it goes back to that whole mindset that we have about like how we ask, or at least do we ask or do we tell? You know, are we telling our dog to sit, or are we asking, right? I said that I use the word cue. That's what I call the words that I teach my dog have meaning, like sit and down and come and stay, all the all the big ones. But traditionally, and still today, I hear a lot of people refer to those words as commands, right? And you can hear, like, right off the bat that what we label those words kind of gives a little bit of information about how we're thinking about how dogs should be listening to us, or how they should be behaving. You know, if we think cue means, like I said before, like that tells the dog when that behavior will pay off. A command gives a different impression. A command tells, like, it's like a, you must do this or else, you know. It's I think of a cue, and I've learned a lot about this from one of my so it sounds like a big word, but like I really, really respect and I learn a lot from a trainer named Kathy Sadeo. So if this is at all sounding interesting to anybody, like, really encourage you to go listen to her stuff. She's going to be much more eloquent about it, because this is like, she talks about it a lot. But she describes the difference between a cue and a command being more like, a cue implies that a reward is likely, whereas a command implies that a punishment might be likely. A cue is a request, whereas a command is more like a demand. You know, a cue makes it's just, it's a lot more positive, at least it sounds like to me. And yeah, it's like a cue is just has less meaning attached, maybe. Like a cue is just a signal in the environment, could be coming from us, might not be, that a reward is available for a certain behavior. Whereas a command implies that kind of or else relationship. Like, if you don't do this, what's going to happen? I don't know. And they can sound the same. And this is why I think it's so interesting when people say that it has to do with your tone of voice, because you can train a cue with rewards and still make make the word sound very forceful. You know, I can say, Dizzy, sit, and he'll listen because he knows a reward is coming. You know, I can make it sound firm or even harsh, who knows. And I can make a command sound really nice. You know, if I've trained a behavior with some kind of punishment, I'm trying to, like, so I'm trying to think of a good example, but like, you know, maybe a human example is more likely, because I definitely need more practice in applying all of these principles and these concepts to in my human relationships. Like with dogs, I've got it down. You know, there's no judgment. It's like, we got rewards like out the wazoo, no problem. With humans, I've got some skill building to do, I will admit. But yeah, so I can with yeah, like, okay, so this is good. This is like in your, maybe in a human relationship, you know, like with David. God, he better not watch this. But you know, I can make a command sound very sweet. You know, I can be like, please, would you just please put the dishes away? You know, it sounds nice, but it kind of comes with this or else attached. It's like, he knows, like, if I ask him, even if I sound really nice, that if he doesn't do it, I'm gonna be not pleasant to be around. Or, you know, I don't know. I'm having trouble with examples at the moment, but you see what I mean. Like, that's really what's at the core of the difference between a cue versus a command. At least the way that I think about it now, thanks to Kathy. You know, it's not about the tone. Yes, our tone can be a part of it, but that's not really what's at the core of what's behind the motivation for the animal to do that behavior. Now, if I say, like, you shouldn't be telling your dog to do something, you should be asking them, like, that might sound like, well, that's taking away our power. Or, you know, like, if I ask, like, what if he says no? Like, you know, I have no recourse. If I can't issue consequences, like the bad kind, that takes away all of our power, our influence. But it's not so. You just have to remember, going back to where your power lies, where the power or the influence over that behavior lies, right? Remember, it's not the cue, it's in the consequences. So we just have to make sure that we get really, really good at rewarding those behaviors that you want to be really strong, and then of course attaching them to that cue. So if you don't, if you want your dog to listen when you say sit or when you say off or whatever it is, you just have to remember that when you ask, those rewards have to follow, at least more often than not. Because again, every time they don't get rewarded, you weaken your cue because you're taking deposits out of that jar. And it's only fair. Like, I absolutely will agree with you. Like, I do want that control. I do want that power to have Dizzy, do what I ask when I ask, Dizzy, hop up. When I say hop up on that box, I want him to listen to right away. When I say off, get off the couch, I want him to do it right away the first time I ask. But still not good at that throw. We're not going to do this again. But yeah, if I want him to listen the first time, I have to know that the power for me to get him to listen the first time comes from the reward, comes from the consequence. It comes from what happens after he does the behavior, not because of what I said before the behavior happened. Oh, he's so cute. I can't stand it. He's just, you can only see him in the corner. I wish I could move my camera because he's just like leaning up against that box, and it's like, you are lazy bones. You're lazy today. Yeah, so we just have to remember that behavior is a product of what happens after it, right? And it's because of the whole history. It's because of every time that behavior's happened, what's been the result? Have they gained something that they wanted, or have they lost something that they wanted? Or has something awful happened, like being taken home from the dog park? It's so terrible. Yeah. So it's not the result of what happened before. It's not how we issued those instructions. It's not tone of voice. It's not because you're a dude, or it's not because you're a lady, or or whatever. It's about those consequences. It's about that history and those deposits into that jar. So that's it. That's my spiel. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. I don't know. Diz, do you want to practice a couple more? I will, if you hop up. Not here, on the box. Hop up. I guess I need my practice. I need to work on my aim. Okay. All right, here we go. Ooh, got one. Okay, let's try 2 in a row. That one was not my fault. That was a good throw. And you're normally a good catch. Hop up. Have a seat. Good. All right. Consequences happening in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes. Bingo. 2 in a row. Excellent. We're getting better. You guys see, it's the proof right here. I don't want to jinx myself. Yes. 3. I need some more big pieces. We're getting crumbs in the jar. We're going to need a refill soon. Okay, Diz. Try to do it without looking. Fail. Do you guys have any questions? Any other dog things that have come up in the last 2 days or the last time you saw me? Hop up. I like this game. I like this game, Diz. Not looking is not good. Hop up. There you go. Ready? Yes. Ah. um, Here's something. Another reason that dogs can stop listening to cues, or maybe they were never super reliable in the first place, is because if in that history, we talked about reinforcement history. If the history of the consequences, if someone, there was a, I'm switching analogies here, but switching metaphors. But if there was someone who, like, I'm imagining like the, whoever's keeping a record of our good and bad deeds, for the afterlife or whatever. They're like, there's a scroll for everything we did. Say there's a scroll. Someone's keeping track of how many times the dog got rewarded for sit, or how many times he got punished. Like a record of every time that dog ever sat. What happened after? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it neutral? Was it nothing? And if in that history, on that scroll, I don't know why I scroll. I don't know why we're going here, but go with me. There were sometimes nothing happened. Sometimes the dog got something yummy. And I don't know why. Sometimes bad things happen. Let's not use sit, because whoever punishes a dog for sitting. No, let's do use sit. Okay. All right, here we go. Say there's a dog who really does not like having their head pat, because a lot of dogs hate having their head pat. Let's say that the celestial being who's keeping a record, they're watching this dog every time they sit. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes that dog got a cookie, and sometimes that dog got a head pat. And the owner is like, I always reward my dog for sitting, right? Because they're like, I'm rewarding him with the pat on the head. I'm rewarding him with cookies. Like, food or not, like, that dog is always getting rewarded. But we know that the consequence that's offered for any behavior, like the trainer, the handler, the owner, doesn't get to decide what's reinforcing for the animal. The animal gets to decide. So for this dog, head pats are actually punishing. Head pats are not enjoyable. So what the owner's actually doing when she pats the dog on the head for sitting is punishing the dog for sitting, in effect. So that is what's going on the scroll. It's what the dog thinks. And so what can happen, and what can cause a dog to be a little unreliable in whether or not they listen when the owner says sit, is that history is kind of all over the place, right? If in the dog's eyes something bad happens half the time, or sometimes at all, when they're given that cue, when they're presented with the here's your opportunity to do this behavior, the calculation in their head, because the calculation on that scroll is going to be, I don't know, if I sit now, she might pat me on the head, and I really don't want that to happen. So I don't know. Do I sit now? Am I more likely to get a cookie? Does she have a cookie in her hand? If she's got a cookie in her hand, I'm probably going to get that cookie. So sitting now is a good time. But I don't know. She doesn't have a cookie right now, so now she might only give me a head pat. And I really don't, of course, of course, dogs are not actually thinking in those words. But in effect, that's kind of what's happening. If sometimes bad things happen when they're given the cue, then that cue is going to be unreliable. So that's another reason why sometimes we get this spotty behavior. Let me think of another example, because that one wasn't bad. The head patting thing really it throws a lot of dogs for a loop. Luckily, a lot of owners also reward their dogs heavily for sitting with treats, so that one, more often than not, that one's okay. But something that like, okay, here's another one. If a dog, um, let's say, no, let's say, okay, a dog, they know the touch cue, which essentially, means your dog touches their nose to your hand. Diz, you can show this one. Hey, Diz, touch. Oh, that one was too high. Touch. Can we see that? There it is. That's touch. Say, and we, the way that we use touch, sometimes, is to get a dog to move. If I want Dizzy to move over here, I might say touch, and now he's on that side of me. If I want to use him as an example or a prop in these streams, and I need him in a different space, if I'm like, oh, something's blocking you down there, touch over here. Good boy. Touches, it's a good way to get an animal to move. But sometimes, say that we're using it to get a dog who's scared of the car to jump up into a car. It's good for this for dogs who are not scared of the car. If you don't want to have to lift them, like me, I'm like, my back is starting to hurt. Like, I can't be picking you up all the time. Like, you have to get up on your own. I might say touch into the car, and the dog can jump up and touch my hand in the car. And but like, if a dog was scared of the car, this is an example, and jumping up, like, puts them in the car, and you repeatedly ask them to touch in front of the car, or into the car, that touch cue or that touch jar, it's going to lose value, and it's going to become less likely that the dog will listen in other contexts the more that you try to make them do that thing that scares them. Even though the cue, you trained it up using rewards only, it was really strong, but then we started bringing it into this context where, like, it made the dog very uneasy. That can also impact, like, how the dog feels when presented with that cue, with that opportunity to learn. They're like, I'm not confident about this. No, thank you. And we can subtract from all that power that we put into it at first. We can subtract from it. We just have to remember to balance that out. Make sure that we reinforce it heavily outside of that context, if we want it to continue working. If we want it to continue to have power. I better reward him. He's been sitting so nicely. Yes, I'm getting there, you guys. Nice. Oh, you can get that. Search. So yeah, you guys are awful quiet. Any this must be making sense, or else I put you to sleep. But yeah, I just, like, I don't know. This is the stuff I get so excited about and so jazzed about, because this is the meat of the things. This is what we need to understand if we're gonna fix behavior that gets broken, or behavior that we just want to strengthen, or behavior that we're like, it's really strong for one person, we just need somebody else to understand. I see this, like, probably one of the contexts that I see this happen the most in is with, like, there's a difference between the parents and the kids. The dog will listen, no problem, to the adults, not so much to the kids. And often that's because the parents are the ones who did most of the training. They dished out all those yummy rewards, and they're like, great, Fido knows all these behaviors. He's such a good dog. We love him. It's awesome. But he never listens to the kids. We just need him to listen to the kids. And it's like, no problem at all. We just need the kids to be able to provide those reinforcers too when Fido listens. Have the kids practice. Like I said with David, where it's like, Dizzy knows off. David knows how to ask Dizzy to get off. We just need to like maybe cram a bunch of reinforcement over the course of a couple sessions, over a course of a couple days. Have Dizzy do a lot of this and get reinforced from David for listening. And easy peasy. We got it. You know, we can put a bunch of deposits into that jar. And then David can afford some withdrawals because Dizzy will listen more often. Same with the kids. We just need to like do this a few times where the kids ask a bunch of times, sit, and the dog gets rewarded every time. Even if it's a dog who like you swear up and down, like he knows it. He doesn't need to learn what it means. Doesn't matter. Like have the kids practice the exact same thing. Have them practice the easy stuff that the dog knows well. Just have them be ready to ask and provide reinforcement. And if, you know, sometimes it's, if they're little kids especially, they don't provide that reinforcement because they're scared. You know, dogs have teeth, and sometimes when dogs take treats from hands, those teeth get the fingers too, and it hurts, and it's only fair. Like I'd be scared too. Actually, I am scared sometimes too. Some dogs, like, it hurts, and I'm like, I don't want to give you any treats. So a lot of times that's what happens with kids too, is they're like, they have the treats. The dog wants the treats. Like, we're all set up for success here, but the kid's scared to give them because they know the dog's going to bite them. I mean, not bite them in like a mean way, but just they're going to get their fingers because they want the food. So this is an easy fix. You just have to teach the kids to, like, instead of handing the dog a treat, just toss the treat on the floor. You know, have them ask for the sit, dog sits, toss the treat on the floor. Same, you'll get the same results, only the kid doesn't have to worry about bitey fingers anymore. So this is, yeah, we want to protect the kids. We don't want the kids to be scared of dogs, but they also have to be there to provide some reinforcement too. And we have to help them. We have to teach them, like, not just the dog, but the kids. Because, I mean, it is really cool to see, like, kids feel like they have that power too, you know, like when they're like, I don't know, I think it's the same. Like, it feels for us, I know for me at least, when you ask a dog to do something and they just listen right away, like, it feels really cool. It feels like, I feel like I'm so powerful and I have all this control, and like it just feels really good. And you can see that in kids' faces when they have that control suddenly. They're like, oh my God, this is so cool. And you get kids hooked on training dogs, and it's like, it's so cool. I mean, you just smile on their faces. It's awesome. And it's like everybody wins, right? Because the kid feels good, parent feels good because they're seeing their kid like get these awesome results and have this great relationship with the dog. And it's good for the dog because the dog's like, heck yeah, man, I know exactly what I need to do to earn rewards. I get food all the time. This is great. This is working out awesome. So yeah, it's cool, but everybody has to be taught. Like, not just one person in the family is like, okay, I'm going to do all the dog training and then the dog's going to know it all. You got to help all the other family members, all the household members, to fill up their own jar. And here we go with the attention getting, like, now that I've brought the food out, he's like, what can I do? Dizzy, what do you say? You see his little head tilt. But I'm not looking at him. This looks different, Jen. What do you say? What do you say? Gotta be looking at him. And now the pawing will begin. Luckily, it's time for us to go get dinner or something. So I will leave you guys with that. Hopefully this helps some people sort out some of those issues. Make sure that Fido, whatever your dog is called, Fido's such a overplayed. Really, like, I don't know. I need a better, like, generic dog name. Yeah. Anyway, we'll come up with one later. But yeah, Karen, see you on Monday. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, everybody, for joining and watching and being here. And if this is your first time or you haven't already, please do hit subscribe on YouTube or like or follow on Facebook. And if you know somebody else who could really benefit from information like this, also helps me hugely if you share these resources with them. Share the links, share the videos. Thank you again, and have a great weekend, everybody. I hope to see you on Monday. Say bye, Dizzy. Bye, guys.